My name is Scarlett Harper, and I stood on a Broadway stage, my name shining in lights like a dream come true. But then a melody rang out, shattering everything. It was my mother's song, a lullaby I thought had been buried with her after a tragic accident. Now, it was in the hands of Victor, the celebrated genius composer, the whole world was praising. He didn't just steal her legacy, he was trampling on the truth of her death. My stepfather finally revealed the horrifying truth. My mother was murdered. She had encoded evidence of a corrupt industry's crimes into the very symphony Victor now possessed. They thought fear would keep me silent. But tonight, I will turn this stage into my weapon, and my mother's unfinished symphony will be his final judgment. Scarlett sat on the edge of the stage while the rest of the cast moved to their next number. She clutched her music sheets with trembling fingers. The notes blurred slightly as her mind replayed the melody she had just sung. It was not just familiar, it was intimate, something buried deep inside her. Olivia walked over with a towel slung around her shoulders. She dropped it playfully on Scarlett's lap. "You were amazing. Everyone felt it. But you looked like you, seen a ghost." I always thought I knew what it meant to dream big, but nothing could have prepared me for the day my name lit up on a Broadway marquee. My name was small compared to the title of the show, but it was there, glowing in white bulbs against the New York sky. Scarlett Harper, lead role. People walked by without even glancing up. They had trains to catch, coffees to sip, meetings to attend. But I stood still on the sidewalk, my head tilted back, my throat tight, trying not to burst into tears. That morning had started like any other, except of course it was not like any other. I woke before dawn, tossing and turning under my blankets, hearing the overture of the show play in my head over and over again like an old record stuck on repeat. By the time the sun painted the tops of the buildings pink and gold, I had already showered, changed, and lined my bag with every script and notebook I owned. I stood in front of the bathroom mirror, gripping the sink so hard my knuckles turned white. I whispered to myself like I always did before auditions. "This is it. Do not mess it up." My phone buzzed on the counter and I grabbed it, almost dropping it in the sink. Olivia's name glowed on the screen, my best friend since drama school, now a dancer in the ensemble of the very same show. I pressed answer and her laugh rang out before she even spoke. "You awake?" "I never went down," I said, pacing the bathroom floor. I could not stop hearing the music. "It is burned into my skull." "That is not insomnia, babe, that is destiny," she teased. Scarlett Harper is about to take Broadway by storm. I stopped pacing and pressed my hand to my forehead. "Do not say that. What if they realize they made a mistake? What if I bomb?" "You will not bomb," she said with absolute certainty. "You are the best singer I know, the best actress too. You were born for this. The only mistake they could make is doubting you." I smiled faintly, though the fear still clawed at me. "I just do not want to let anyone down, especially myself." "You will not. Just get your butt to the theater and prove me right." When we hung up, I pulled my scarf tight around my neck and stepped into the cold New York air. The streets were alive as always. The scent of roasted nuts from a cart, the sharp honk of cabs, the low rumble of the subway beneath my feet. I had walked these blocks 1,000 times, but that morning felt different. Like the city itself was humming with me. When I reached the theater, I froze under the marquee. My name in glowing letters. My knees wobbled. I forced myself through the heavy doors and into the lobby. The scent of wood, paint, and velvet curtains hit me at once. It was the scent of home. The stage was already buzzing with life. Actors stretching, dancers chatting, stagehands dragging props across the floor. Olivia spotted me and threw me a wink from across the stage. I raised my hand in a half wave before I heard another voice calling me. "Scarlett!" I turned to see Marjorie Kent, the director. She was in her 50s, sharp gray bob, eyes like blades. People said she could make or break a career with a single glance. My throat tightened as I walked toward her. "Good morning," I managed. She scanned me with those sharp eyes. "Morning, I hope you're ready. You are carrying this show. Audiences will come for the spectacle, but they will stay because of you. Remember that." My heart pounded so hard I thought she might hear it. "I will give everything I have." Her mouth curled into something almost like a smile. "That is the right answer. All right, everyone, places. Let us begin." I hurried to my mark. The music director handed out fresh copies of sheet music. I flipped through mine quickly. My eyes danced over notes and rests, crescendos and repeats. Then my breath caught. There it was. A simple melody tucked into the middle of a song. My fingers froze on the page. I knew that tune. I had hummed it as a child without knowing where it came from. It was the song that echoed in the back of my mind when I could not sleep, the one I used to whisper under my breath while waiting for the subway, the one that had no name but belonged to me. I whispered before I could stop myself. No, this cannot be real. The pianist started the introduction. My throat tightened, but I forced myself to open my mouth. The notes poured out like water breaking through a dam. The melody wrapped around me like a ghost. And for a moment I could swear another voice was singing with me. A woman's voice, warm and familiar. I faltered. My voice cracked slightly. Marjorie raised an eyebrow. "Scarlett, are you all right?" "Yes," I said quickly. "Sorry, it is just I know this song, somehow." Her eyes narrowed. "You only got the sheet today. How could you possibly know it?" I shook my head. "I do not know. It feels like it has been inside me forever." From across the stage, Olivia mouthed, "You are fine. Keep going." So I kept going, stronger this time. My chest expanded, my voice rang out. The melody carried me, lifted me, and for a moment I forgot my fear. The notes swirled through the theater, and when the final phrase ended, silence hung for a heartbeat before the room erupted. Cast members clapped, crew members cheered. Even Marjorie smiled. "Well," she said, "maybe destiny is real after all." That was breathtaking. I bowed my head slightly, cheeks burning. I forced a smile, but inside I was trembling. Because I knew the truth. That song was mine long before today, and I had no idea why. The rehearsal continued, but I barely felt present. Every time the melody returned, it hit me like a shock. I remembered fragments of something. A soft hand smoothing my hair when I was small. A voice humming the same tune as I drifted to sleep. But those memories were broken pieces, shadows at the edge of light. My mother's face flashed in my mind, blurry, distant. She had died when I was too young to remember clearly, or at least that was what I had always believed. During the break, Olivia found me sitting on the edge of the stage, staring at the score like it might explain itself. She plopped down beside me and nudged my shoulder. "You okay?" "I do not know." "You sounded amazing. What is the problem?" "This song. I have sung it before, not here, not anywhere, just in my life since I was little, like it has always been there." Olivia tilted her head. "Could it be something your mom used to sing?" I looked down at the sheet again, tracing the notes with my finger. "Maybe, but why would it be here? Why now?" Olivia shrugged. "Maybe the universe is just weird like that, or maybe it is fate." I laughed softly, though it held no humor. If it is fate, it feels like a cruel one. When rehearsal ended, I walked out into the night air feeling both lighter and heavier than I ever had. The city lights blurred as if the world itself was asking questions I could not answer. The melody followed me home, haunting and comforting all at once. Lying in bed that night, I hummed the tune again without meaning to. The sound filled the silence of my apartment. For the first time in years, I wished I could ask my mother about it, but she was gone, and all I had was this mysterious song lodged deep in my bones. I closed my eyes and whispered into the dark. "Why do I know you?" The melody lingered in my ears until sleep finally pulled me under. I woke up the next morning with the tune still alive in my head. It was not just a melody anymore, it was like a shadow that followed me everywhere. I rolled over in bed and stared at the ceiling, humming softly before I even realized what I was doing. My chest felt heavy, the kind of weight that did not come from fear, but from something older, something buried deep. By the time I made coffee, my phone was buzzing with Olivia's name again. Her voice came bright and sharp, like sunlight breaking into my apartment. "So, superstar, how does it feel to own Broadway already?" I laughed into the phone, though my laugh was thin. "Own, I barely survived yesterday." "You sounded like you were born for that song. The room was hypnotized, Scarlett. You do not even know how magical you looked." I pressed my fingers to the rim of my mug. "Olivia, I am not kidding. That song is haunting me. I swear I have known it all my life." There was a pause. "Like your mom, maybe she used to sing it." I sank onto the couch, staring out at the city below. Cars slid through the gray light, horns echoing like restless birds. I barely remember her voice. She was gone before I could hold on to details. But this melody feels like hers. It feels like it belongs to her. "Then maybe it does," Olivia said softly. "Maybe it is a piece of her that stayed inside you." I closed my eyes, letting her words sink in. But how did it end up here in this show, written by someone else? That is the mystery, babe, and you love mysteries more than anyone I know. I smiled despite myself. She was right. I had always loved puzzles, always wanted to know why things fit the way they did. Rehearsal that day was a blur. Every time the melody appeared, it pulled me under like a tide. My throat tightened, my chest ached, but my voice kept carrying it. The director did not notice my distraction, or if she did, she chalked it up to nerves. But Olivia noticed. She always noticed. During the break, she dragged me outside into the cold air. We sat on the steps of the theater with paper cups of coffee warming our hands. She leaned close, her voice low. "You look like you have seen a ghost." "Maybe I have," I whispered, her brow furrowed. "You are scaring me." I heard another voice with mine yesterday, a woman's voice, like she was singing through me. It felt familiar. Olivia touched my arm gently. Scarlett, that has to be your mom. The word mom felt sharp and soft all at once. I had not spoken it out loud in years. If it is, why now? Why here? Maybe because you are finally ready to hear her, Olivia said. Maybe this show is the way she is reaching you. Her certainty filled me with both warmth and dread. That night, I went digging through the shoebox under my bed. It was the only box I had never been able to throw away. Inside were fragments of a woman I barely knew. A photo of her holding me as a baby, her smile wide and alive. A program from one of her concerts, the paper yellowed with time. And at the very bottom, a torn scrap of sheet music. My breath caught when I unfolded it. The handwriting was elegant, looping, and though the ink was faded, the notes were clear. It was not the full melody, but it was there. The same rhythm, the same rise and fall. I held it in trembling hands, whispering into the silence of my apartment. Mom, is this yours? The city outside hummed with sirens and laughter, but inside my apartment it was just me and that scrap of music. My heart pounded as if I had just discovered a secret that could change everything. I barely slept. The next morning I carried the scrap of paper with me, tucked into the pocket of my coat. I wanted to show Olivia, but some part of me felt like I had to protect it. Like it was too fragile, too sacred to share just yet. During rehearsal, my eyes kept drifting toward Victor, the composer. He stood near the orchestra pit with his arms crossed, his face proud, smug even. Every time the melody played, I felt anger boil in my chest. Did he know? Did he know this belonged to someone else? To my mother, I forced myself to focus, to hit every note, to dance every step. But inside, the questions burned brighter than the stage lights. That evening, when the theater emptied and I was finally alone in the dressing room, I unfolded the scrap of music again. I hummed it softly, letting it echo in the dim space. The mirror reflected my tired face, but behind my reflection, for just a second, I thought I saw her. My mother. I blinked hard, and the image was gone. The morning after I found the scrap of music, I walked to rehearsal with my hand clenched inside my coat pocket, fingers wrapped around the fragile page like it was a piece of treasure. The city was loud and alive, but my thoughts drowned everything out. Each step I took was in rhythm with the melody. It was like my entire body had been rewired to carry it. When I reached the theater, I saw Victor standing in the lobby, laughing with one of the producers. His smile was sharp, his eyes glinting in that way people get when they know the world is paying attention to them. I stopped for a moment, hidden by the crowd, just watching him. He was older than me by at least 20 years, tall, charming, with the kind of confidence that filled every corner of a room. He was the man who wrote this show, the man everyone was praising for genius. But now I could not stop thinking about the paper burning in my pocket. Did he steal it? Did he take something that was not his and turn it into glory? Olivia appeared at my side, snapping me out of the spiral. Why are you staring at him like you are about to throw your coffee in his face? I forced a laugh. I am not. I do not know. Something feels off. She gave me a curious look but didn't push. Come on, we are late. Inside the rehearsal space, the day unfolded in a blur of music and choreography. My body went through the motions, but my mind kept drifting. Every time we sang that number, I felt like my chest might crack open. The applause from the cast, the approving nod from Marjorie, none of it reached me. All I could think about was the question gnawing at me. At the end of rehearsal, Victor approached me. His smile was charming, but it made my stomach twist. You have something special with that song, he said. It is like it was written for you. I swallowed hard, gripping my bag tighter. It feels like it has always been with me. His eyes flickered for just a second, a tiny shift. Interesting. Music has a way of finding the right voices. I wanted to ask him right there, wanted to throw the scrap of music at him and demand answers, but I didn't. I just nodded and walked away, my heart pounding in my ears. That night I went to visit my stepfather, Daniel. He had raised me after my mother disappeared, and though we had our distance, he was still the person who knew me best. His apartment smelled like old books and leather, the kind of place that made you feel like you had stepped into another time. He opened the door with a smile that crinkled his eyes. Scarlett, what a surprise. I needed to see you, I said. We sat in his living room, cups of tea warming our hands. I pulled the scrap of music from my pocket and laid it on the table between us. His face changed instantly. His eyes widened, his jaw tightened. Where did you get this? It was in the box of Mom's things. I never really looked at it before, but it matches the melody from the show, the one Victor wrote. He stared at the paper for a long time before answering. I know this piece, your mother wrote it. She used to play it late at night when she thought no one was listening. My heart thudded painfully. So it was hers, I knew it. He nodded slowly. Yes, she never finished it though. It was part of something bigger, something she said would change everything. I leaned forward, gripping the edge of the couch. Change what? He hesitated, like he was weighing how much truth I could handle. The industry, the people who run it. She had secrets in her music, Scarlett, secrets that some very powerful people did not want revealed. His words made my skin prickle. You mean her accident? He looked at me sharply. Her accident was no accident. I have always known that. I was hired back then before I even knew her to investigate what happened. That is how we met. And when she was gone, I stayed for you. The room seemed to spin. I pressed my hand to my forehead, trying to make sense of the pieces colliding in my mind. My mother, the melody, Victor, secrets. Why did you never tell me? I whispered. I wanted to protect you. You were so young, but now maybe you are meant to finish what she started. I stared down at the scrap of paper, my vision blurring with tears, my mother's handwriting, her unfinished song, and somehow me standing at the center of it all. Daniel reached across the table and took my hand. Scarlett, whatever happens, you're not alone. I wanted to believe him, I really did. But as I walked home later that night, the city lights seemed sharper, colder. The melody was louder than ever, echoing in my chest, pushing me toward something I did not yet understand. And for the first time, I wondered if stepping onto that stage had been fate, or if I had just stepped into a story much bigger and much darker than my own. The next few days were a blur of rehearsals, city lights, and sleepless nights. I walked through New York like a ghost, the melody running in my head louder than the traffic, louder than the voices of people shouting on street corners, louder than the subway rattling beneath my feet. It was everywhere, chasing me through every moment. On stage, the music director praised me, the cast clapped, and Marjorie even offered rare nods of approval. To everyone else, I was glowing. To me, I felt like I was cracking open. I carried the scrap of music with me everywhere, folded neatly in my bag like a secret I could not let go of. Sometimes, when no one was looking, I would slip it out and trace the faded ink with my fingertips. The handwriting was so delicate, so precise, and yet behind the neatness there was something urgent, something desperate. I wondered what my mother had been thinking as she wrote those notes. Was she afraid? Was she hopeful? Did she know someone would one day find them? One night after rehearsal, Olivia and I walked together down 8th Avenue. The air was sharp and cold, our breath coming out in little white clouds. She linked her arm through mine, her usual way of grounding me when my thoughts spun too fast. You have been carrying that haunted look all week, she said. Talk to me, Scarlett. I exhaled slowly, watching the smoke of my breath swirl. I talked to Daniel. He told me the song was Mom's. That she used to play it at night, that it was part of something bigger, and he thinks her accident wasn't an accident at all. Olivia stopped walking and stared at me. Scarlett, are you saying someone hurt her, on purpose? I nodded, my throat tightening. That is what he believes. He was investigating it before he even knew her, and when she died, he stayed to take care of me. Her eyes softened with both shock and sympathy. Oh my God, that means Victor. I do not know yet, I cut in. But the song is here in his show, and I cannot shake the feeling that he knows exactly where it came from. We stood there in the cold, taxis rushing past, people brushing by with bags and headphones and busy lives. But for us, the world had stopped. What are you going to do? Olivia asked. I do not know, but I cannot ignore it anymore. The next day I found myself watching Victor more closely. He carried himself like a man who believed in his own brilliance. He spoke in grand statements, waving his hands as if every word deserved applause. The cast adored him. The producers trusted him, but when our eyes met across the rehearsal space, something in me twisted. During a break, I approached him, my palms slick with sweat. He turned toward me with that charming smile. Scarlett, he said warmly, you were extraordinary again today. Thank you, I replied, my voice steady though my chest was racing. I wanted to ask you something about the song. His smile didn't falter, but his eyes sharpened. What about it? It feels familiar to me, almost like something I heard a long time ago. Where did you get the inspiration? He chuckled lightly, as if brushing off the weight of the question. Inspiration comes from everywhere, from life, from love, from loss. Music floats in the air and the right composer just catches it. I held his gaze. This one feels personal, like it belongs to someone else. For a flicker of a second, his expression shifted. It was tiny, barely there, but I caught it. Then the smile returned, wider than before. Everything belongs to someone else before it belongs to us. That is the way art works. He turned and walked away, leaving me standing there with my fists clenched. His words echoed in my head, twisting the knot in my stomach tighter. That evening, I went back to Daniel's apartment. He was sitting in his worn leather chair, a notebook open on his lap. He looked up at me with concern before I even spoke. You look troubled, he said. I talked to him, I admitted, dropping onto the couch. I asked about the song. He dodged it. He knows more than he is saying. Daniel closed the notebook slowly. That does not surprise me. Your mother had many students, admirers, people who wanted to learn from her. Some saw her as a mentor, some saw her as competition. If he was close to her, he might have had access to her work. My chest tightened. He stole it. He stole her music and built his career on it. Daniel's eyes darkened. It is possible, and if your mother was onto something dangerous, maybe he played a bigger role than you realize. The words made my blood run cold. I leaned back against the couch, staring at the ceiling. How do I even begin to prove something like that? Daniel leaned forward, his voice firm. You start with the music. That melody is not just a song, Scarlett. Your mother hid things in her compositions. Codes, patterns, I saw her do it. If you study it closely, you may find something no one else has. I looked at him in disbelief. You are saying she left a message inside the music? He nodded slowly. Yes, she always said that sound could carry secrets better than words. The thought sent shivers down my spine. My mother's handwriting on the page, her melody in my voice, and now the possibility that she had left me something hidden inside the music itself. That night back at my apartment, I laid the scrap of music on my desk and stared at it until my eyes blurred. I played the melody on my keyboard again and again, searching for something beneath the notes. Every time I reached the end, I felt like I was missing a door that was right in front of me but invisible. As the hours passed and the city fell quieter, I began to remember something. A night from my childhood, blurry and dreamlike. My mother is sitting at the piano, her fingers moving across the keys. Her voice hummed the same tune, and then she leaned down, kissed my forehead, and whispered something I could never quite recall. Until now. Listen closely, Scarlett. Someday you will understand. The memory hit me so hard I dropped my hands from the keys. Tears spilled down my face before I could stop them. She had left it for me. All this time, she had left it for me. But why? And what was I supposed to do with it now? Sleep became something I only pretended to have. I would lie in bed staring at the ceiling, the city lights bleeding through my curtains, the melody pulsing through my chest like a second heartbeat. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her hands. My mother's hands, long and graceful, moving across piano keys I could not quite see. Her voice hummed through the air, softer than a whisper, warmer than memory. And then I would wake, gasping, reaching for a woman who was never there. Days blurred into nights, rehearsals into exhaustion. On stage, my voice soared and people clapped, but inside I was unraveling. I carried the scrap of paper with me everywhere. Sometimes in rehearsal, when no one was looking, I would slip it out and hide it in my script. Just knowing it was close made me feel less lost. One afternoon, during a break, Olivia sat beside me on the stage floor. The theater was mostly empty, the others outside smoking or sipping coffee. She leaned close, her eyes scanning my face. You are pale, you look like you have not slept in weeks. I haven't, I admitted, my fingers fidgeting with the edge of my script. This song, it is taking everything out of me. Olivia tilted her head, concern softening her voice. Scarlett, I need you to be honest. Are you okay? Because you are scaring me a little. I pulled the scrap from my pocket, unfolding it carefully. I had never shown it to anyone but Daniel. I placed it in her hands. She studied it, eyebrows knitting. This is old. Whose handwriting is this? My mother, I whispered. She wrote it, and it is the same melody Victor is passing off as his. Her eyes snapped up to mine. You are serious? As serious as I have ever been. Daniel confirmed it. He said Mom used to play it at night, that it was part of something bigger. He thinks she hid something inside her music. Olivia shook her head slowly, as if she was trying to process. So, Victor stole it. He must have known her. The word stole made my stomach churn. Yes, but I do not know why, or what exactly she was hiding. Olivia folded the paper carefully and handed it back to me. Whatever it is, you need to be careful. If she died because of it. Her voice trailed off, but the silence was louder than words. That evening, Daniel invited me over again. His apartment felt warmer than mine, safer somehow, filled with the scent of tea and old wood. I sat across from him, the scrap of paper on the coffee table between us. I showed it to Olivia, I said softly. He nodded. She deserves to know. You cannot carry this alone. I leaned forward, lowering my voice. You said Mom hid secrets in her music. What kind of secrets? Daniel's eyes darkened. She discovered things, corruption, exploitation, deals hidden beneath contracts. She said the industry was rotten at the core and she wanted to expose it. But she knew words could be destroyed, papers burned, so she wove patterns into her compositions. Musical codes, sequences that if decoded could reveal everything. I stared at him, my throat dry. You mean the evidence of what happened to her, it could be inside this melody? Yes, he said firmly. And if Victor has it, if he built this show on it, then either he knows and is hiding it, or he does not realize what he has. Either way, the truth is in the music. I pressed my hands to my face, my head spinning. How am I supposed to figure out something like that? I am not a detective, I am an actress. He reached across the table and touched my arm. You are her daughter, that is enough. You have her instincts, her ear. If anyone can find it, it is you. Later that night, back in my apartment, I sat at my keyboard with the scrap of music in front of me. I played it over and over, searching for something hidden. At first, it was just notes, just sound. But after hours of repetition, I began to hear patterns, repeated phrases that didn't quite fit, strange intervals that seemed almost deliberate. It was as if the music was trying to speak in a language I didn't yet understand. I whispered to myself, "What are you saying, Mom?" The clock ticked past midnight, then 1, then 2. My eyes burned, my shoulders ached, but I couldn't stop. Finally, I collapsed back on the couch, exhausted, the melody still echoing in my head. I fell asleep with the keys under my fingertips. I dreamed of her again. This time, the dream was sharper. She sat at the piano, her face hidden by shadows, but her voice was clear. She hummed the melody, then looked straight at me. "Find the rest, Scarlett. Do not let them bury me." I jolted awake, gasping, my hands trembling. The scrap of paper lay on the floor where it had slipped from the keyboard. I picked it up, clutching it to my chest. The next morning, I walked into rehearsal feeling like a storm was building inside me. When Victor greeted me with his practiced charm, I could barely return his smile. His eyes flicked to me, sharp and calculating, and I wondered how much he knew. Did he recognize my mother's handwriting if he ever saw it? Did he know the song he claimed as his was a message meant for me? During a break, I caught Olivia's hand and pulled her aside. "I need your help," I said, my voice urgent. "With what?" "I need to study this music, really study it. I think there is something hidden in it." She hesitated, searching my face. "You mean like a code?" "Yes," I said quickly. "Daniel told me Mom used to hide secrets in her compositions. If we can find the rest of the melody, maybe we can figure it out." Olivia's eyes widened, but then she nodded firmly. "Then we will do it together, whatever it takes." Her loyalty steadied me. For the first time in days, I felt a flicker of hope. That night, the two of us sat in my apartment with the scrap of music spread out on the table, my keyboard ready. Olivia leaned over the page, tracing the notes with her finger. "These repeats here," she said. "They feel strange, like they don't belong." I nodded. "Exactly. It is like she left markers, breadcrumbs." We played the melody again and again, listening for something beyond the sound. The hours stretched on, but the deeper we went, the more convinced I became. My mother was speaking through this music. She had left something for me to find. As dawn began to lighten the sky outside my window, Olivia looked at me, her eyes tired but shining. "Scarlett, whatever this is, you are not imagining it. There is something here, I can feel it too." Tears filled my eyes, spilling over before I could stop them. I covered my face with my hands, shaking with both exhaustion and relief. "Mom," I whispered, "I hear you." And in that moment, as the city woke outside, I knew there was no turning back. I was going to find the rest of her music. I was going to uncover whatever secret she had buried in those notes. No matter what it cost me. By the time the weekend arrived, my apartment looked less like a home and more like the messy office of an obsessed detective. Sheet music was taped to the walls, notebooks covered in scribbles littered the floor, and coffee cups stacked on every surface. Olivia and I had been working almost non-stop since that night, our days swallowed by rehearsals and our nights consumed by the melody. I had never seen Olivia so focused. Usually she was the one making jokes, keeping things light, distracting me from my spirals. But now she leaned over the keyboard with her brows furrowed, humming sections under her breath, tapping rhythms on the table. She was every bit as invested as I was, and that loyalty both comforted and terrified me. Because if I was right, then the two of us were digging into something dangerous. One night, after hours of playing and replaying the same sections, Olivia pushed back from the table and rubbed her temples. "This is insane," she muttered. "There are patterns here, Scarlett, I know it. Look at this phrase. It repeats, but it shifts every third time. That is not normal songwriting. That is deliberate." I leaned forward, tracing the notes with my finger. Mom wanted someone to notice. She wanted me to notice. Olivia looked at me with a mix of awe and fear. "So what do we do now?" I bit my lip, my mind spinning. "We need the rest. This scrap is just a fragment. If she hid something, it is in the full piece. And the only full version I know is in this show." Olivia's eyes widened. "Victor's version," I nodded. "Exactly, which means I need to get closer to him." The words tasted bitter in my mouth, but I knew it was the truth. The next day at rehearsal, I forced myself to watch Victor differently. Instead of avoiding him, I sought his company. I asked questions about the music, complimented his orchestrations, smiled when he cracked one of his smug little jokes. He seemed pleased, almost too pleased with the attention, and it made my stomach churn. But if it gave me access to his work, I would endure it. During one break, I caught him alone near the piano, shuffling through a stack of scores. I walked over, trying to keep my hands steady. "Victor," I said softly. He looked up, his smile sliding into place. "Scarlett, you keep getting better every day, truly extraordinary." "Thank you," I replied, forcing warmth into my voice. My eyes flicked to the stack of scores. "I was wondering if I could look at some of your earlier drafts, to understand your process better. I feel like if I understand where the music comes from, I can perform it more authentically." His smile froze just slightly, then returned. "Ah, the hunger of a true artist." "I admire that. Unfortunately, I keep my drafts private. They are messy, embarrassing even. You would not want to see them." I tilted my head, meeting his eyes. "I think I would." For a moment, silence stretched between us. His gaze sharpened, and I felt like he was trying to read me. Then he laughed lightly, closing the folder. "Perhaps another time." And just like that, the moment was gone. That evening, I went to Daniel's apartment again, frustration burning in my chest. He listened quietly as I recounted the conversation, his fingers steepled beneath his chin. "He is hiding something," Daniel said firmly. "If he were innocent, he would have nothing to lose by showing you his drafts." I slumped onto the couch. "So what do I do? Steal them?" Daniel's eyes met mine. "If that is what it takes." The seriousness in his voice startled me. I had never heard him sound so absolute. "Daniel, I am not a thief. I am an actress. I do not even know where he keeps them." He leaned forward, his voice lower. "Listen to me. If your mother was killed for what she discovered, then this is bigger than music. You have to be careful, but you also have to be brave. Do not underestimate how dangerous the truth might be." I wrapped my arms around myself, shivering though the room was warm. I never asked for this. I just wanted to sing, to perform, not to carry her secrets. Daniel's expression softened. "I know, but sometimes we do not choose the stories we are part of. They choose us." His words echoed in me long after I left. That night, Olivia came over again. We sat on the floor surrounded by papers, my keyboard silent for once. I told her everything Daniel had said about the danger, about the possibility that Victor was more involved than we knew. She listened, her face pale. "Scarlett, this is starting to sound like one of those movies where the heroine digs too deep and ends up." She stopped herself. "Ends up what?" I pressed. "Dead," she whispered. The word sat heavy between us. "I cannot stop," I said finally, "even if it is dangerous. If Mom died because of this, then I owe it to her to find the truth." Olivia reached over and grabbed my hands. "Then I am with you, no matter what." Her loyalty broke something in me. Tears filled my eyes and spilled over, and I let them because holding everything inside was killing me. The next rehearsal, I sang the melody with new fire. Every note carried not just the weight of performance, but the weight of truth waiting to be uncovered. The cast clapped, Marjorie smiled, Victor beamed, but I felt like the theater itself was vibrating with secrets only I could hear. After rehearsal, Victor caught me on the way out. "You are remarkable, Scarlett," he said smoothly. "Have you ever considered that this show might be your defining moment? That we could make history together?" I forced a smile. "Maybe. But history has a way of remembering the truth." His smile flickered again, just for an instant. Then he nodded and walked away. I stood there in the empty hallway, the echo of my mother's melody ringing in my ears, and I knew one thing for certain. The closer I got to the truth, the more dangerous this was going to become. And I was ready. By the time the second week of rehearsals began, I was living in two worlds. On stage, I was Scarlett Harper, rising Broadway star, full of fire and light, giving the performance of her life. Off stage, I was a daughter chasing a ghost, hunting for messages buried in music, unraveling secrets that had been hidden long before I was old enough to understand them. The two worlds were colliding, and I could feel it in every breath I took. Olivia and I had made progress with the fragment of music, but it wasn't enough. We needed more. We needed the full composition. Every night after rehearsal, we sat in my apartment surrounded by scribbles and sheet music, ears straining for patterns no one else seemed to hear. We circled odd repetitions, wrote down numbers that emerged from certain sequences, marked symbols that looked like they didn't belong. One evening, Olivia slammed her pencil down, her eyes wide. "Scarlett, look at this," she said, shoving a page toward me. I leaned over, my heart already racing. "This phrase," she explained, pointing at the notes. "It repeats 4 times, but each time it changes slightly. If you translate the changes into numbers, it spells out letters. S-A-R, my breath caught. Scar. Scarlet, she whispered. It is your name. The room spun around me. My name. My mother had hidden my name in the melody. I pressed my hand to my mouth, tears flooding my eyes. She wrote it for me. She left it for me. Olivia's hands were shaking as she reached for mine. There is more. This is just the beginning. If your name is here, then the rest must lead to something bigger. I collapsed back against the couch, my chest aching. For the first time, the proof was undeniable. My mother had left me a message. She had hidden it inside her music, and now it was my job to finish what she started. The next day at rehearsal, I looked at Victor differently. He stood in front of the cast, smiling, conducting the music with that arrogant charm. But now, every time I saw him, all I could think was thief. He had stolen not just my mother's melody, but her message, her truth. After rehearsal, I stayed behind, pretending to practice alone on the stage. The theater emptied slowly until it was just me, the echo of my voice, and the faint hum of the lights above. I sat at the piano, playing the melody softly, letting my fingers trace the secret patterns again. Behind me, I heard footsteps. My body tensed. Beautiful, Victor's voice said, smooth as silk. I turned slowly, forcing a smile. Just practicing. He walked closer, his eyes fixed on me. You have such a deep connection to this song. It is uncanny, like you were meant to sing it. I swallowed hard. Maybe I was. His gaze lingered on me, sharp and curious. Tell me, Scarlett, where did you first hear it? It almost feels like you already knew it before I wrote it. My pulse thundered in my ears. Maybe I did. For a long moment, we just stared at each other. Then he smiled again, but there was no warmth in it. Well, inspiration is a mystery. Some things cannot be explained. He turned and walked away, his footsteps echoing through the empty theater. My whole body was trembling. He knew. I didn't know how much, but he knew. That night, I went to Daniel's apartment again, the weight of Victor's words pressing down on me. Daniel listened as I told him everything Olivia and I had discovered, the letters and the music, my name hidden in the notes, the strange encounter with Victor. He leaned back in his chair, his expression grim. Then it is true, your mother left a message for you, and Victor has been sitting on it all this time. Why would he use it in his show? I asked, frustration bubbling in my voice. If he knows it is hers, why risk putting it on stage? Daniel's eyes narrowed. Maybe he thinks no one would notice. Maybe he thought the one person who could was gone. He never expected you to be here. I shivered. But now he sees me. He knows I know. Daniel leaned forward, his voice low. Then you need to be careful. If he is involved in what happened to your mother, he will not let you expose him. The words sent a chill through me. I wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly feeling small in the dimly lit room. But I cannot stop, I whispered. I have to finish what she started. Daniel's eyes softened, but his voice was firm. Then you will need help. You cannot do this alone. When I left his apartment, the streets of New York felt sharper, the lights harsher, the shadows darker. I walked quickly, clutching the scrap of music in my coat pocket like a talisman. Every car that slowed near me, every stranger's stare, made my skin prickle. Maybe I was just paranoid, or maybe the danger Daniel warned me about was already here. Back in my apartment, Olivia was waiting. She jumped up when she saw my face. What happened? He knows, I said, my voice shaking. Victor knows I recognize the song. He asked me about it. He is watching me. Olivia's eyes filled with fear. Scarlett, this is getting too dangerous. Maybe we should stop. I shook my head violently. I can't, not now. We found my name, Olivia. My mother wanted me to find this. If I stop now, it will all be for nothing. She grabbed my hands, holding them tight. Then promise me you will not do anything reckless. Promise me you will not face him alone. I nodded, though I wasn't sure I could keep that promise. That night, as I lay in bed, sleep finally came, but with it came another dream. My mother again at the piano. But this time, the keys were burning, the notes turning into flames. She looked at me with desperate eyes. Do not trust him, she whispered. I woke up drenched in sweat, my heart racing. The melody was louder than ever, and now it carried words that chilled me to the bone. Do not trust him. The morning after the dream, I woke up with my sheets tangled around me, my heart still pounding like I had been running for miles. My mother's voice echoed in my head, sharper than any alarm clock. Do not trust him. The words clung to me like smoke, impossible to shake off. I stumbled into the kitchen, poured coffee with trembling hands, and stared out at the city below. New York looked the same, taxis honking, people rushing, steam rising from the grates. But for me, everything was different now. Every shadow seemed like a threat, every reflection in a window made me flinch. Olivia came over not long after. She didn't bother knocking, just let herself in like she always did. She stopped short when she saw me sitting at the table with the scrap of music spread out in front of me, my eyes red and swollen. "You look like hell," she said gently, dropping her bag on the floor. "What happened?" I looked up at her, my voice hoarse. She spoke to me again, in a dream. She told me not to trust him. Olivia didn't need me to explain who him was, her face paled. "Victor," I nodded, my throat tight. "I know it sounds crazy, but it felt real, like she was right there, warning me." Olivia sat across from me, reaching for my hand. "It doesn't sound crazy, not after everything we've seen in this music. She left you a trail. Maybe dreams are just another way of guiding you." Her faith in me was a lifeline. "We need more," I said firmly. "This scrap isn't enough. If Mom left a full piece, if there's more hidden in her music, we have to find it. Daniel said she wrote other compositions. Maybe they're still out there." Olivia nodded slowly. "Where do we even start?" My mind went to Daniel. "Her things, anything she left behind, maybe he kept something he didn't tell me about." That evening, I went back to his apartment. He seemed surprised to see me so soon, but not displeased. He poured tea for both of us and waited as I paced his living room, unable to sit still. "Daniel, I need to know," I said finally. "Did she leave anything else? More music? More scraps like this?" His expression tightened, and I knew before he spoke that the answer wasn't simple. "There were rumors," he admitted. "After the accident, people whispered about an unfinished symphony, something she was working on in secret. She never performed it, never showed it to anyone. But I heard her talk about it. She said it would reveal everything." My breath caught. "The symphony," he nodded. "If it exists, it's hidden. Someone must have taken it after she died. And if Victor had access to her work, the implication made my stomach churn. Then he might have it." Daniel leaned forward, his voice low. "Scarlett, if he does, then this show isn't just theft. It's a cover. A way to use her music without anyone realizing what it really is." The thought made my skin crawl. "So he's burying her truth in plain sight." "Yes," Daniel said grimly. "And unless you expose it, no one will ever know." I sat back, my hands shaking around the cup of tea. "Then I have to find the rest of the symphony." Daniel's eyes softened. "You're taking on something dangerous, Scarlett, but I know you won't stop. You're her daughter, you have her fire." Later that night, I told Olivia everything. We sat on the floor of my apartment again, surrounded by papers and notebooks. She chewed her lip, her eyes darting between me and the sheet music. "So the full symphony could still be out there," she said. "If we can find it, we can decode whatever she left behind." I nodded. "Exactly, but if Victor has it," she finished the thought for me. "Then we're walking straight into the lion's den." We sat in silence for a long time. The city hummed outside, but in my apartment, the only sound was the quiet thud of my heartbeat. Finally, Olivia leaned forward, her eyes steady. "Then we go into the lion's den, together." Her courage broke through my fear. I squeezed her hand, tears pricking my eyes. "I don't deserve you," she smiled faintly. "No, but you're stuck with me anyway." The next day at rehearsal, I sang with a new edge. Every note of that melody felt like a secret burning in my chest. I watched Victor out of the corner of my eye, his proud smile, his easy charm. And for the first time, I felt anger sharpen my voice. I wasn't just singing anymore, I was fighting. When rehearsal ended, he pulled me aside again. His tone was casual, but his eyes were sharp. "You seem distracted, Scarlett. Is something bothering you?" I forced a smile. "Just tired. Rehearsals are intense." He studied me for a moment, then added, "You have a remarkable connection to music, almost like it runs in your blood." My stomach dropped, but I kept my expression calm. "Maybe it does." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Keep that connection. It's what makes you extraordinary." As he walked away, my mother's voice echoed in my head again. "Do not trust him." I knew then that I couldn't waste another second. I had to find the rest of her music, no matter what it cost. By the time the weekend arrived, I knew I couldn't keep living in limbo. The scrap of paper, the whispers of my mother's voice, Daniel's warnings, Olivia's loyalty, they were all pushing me forward, toward something bigger than rehearsals and stage lights, toward the truth. I woke early on Saturday, the city still gray and sleepy, and found Olivia already at my apartment with bagels and coffee. She didn't even bother to ask if I had slept. She knew the answer. We sat at my cluttered table, surrounded by piles of sheet music and notes scribbled in messy handwriting. She tore a piece of bagel and handed it to me. "Okay, so we know the scrap matches the melody in Victor's show. We know your mom hid your name in it. And Daniel swears there was a full symphony she never released. That means we need to find the rest. Question is, where do we start?" I chewed slowly, staring at the paper on the table. "Mom's old apartment. Daniel still has some of her things, but maybe there's more stored somewhere. He said she used to write late at night, sometimes in journals. If we can find anything, it could point us toward the symphony. Olivia nodded. Then let's ask him. Later that day, we went to Daniel's apartment together. He welcomed us in, his eyes flicking between us like he already knew why we had come. We didn't even sit before I spoke. Daniel, did Mom keep journals, sketches, anything she might have hidden from people outside the family? He hesitated, then sighed, setting his cup of tea down. Yes, she had journals, dozens of them, but most disappeared after the accident. I searched her things, but a lot was missing. Too much for coincidence. My stomach twisted. You think someone took them? He nodded. Yes, whoever caused the accident didn't just want her gone, they wanted her work silenced. They knew those journals could expose them. Olivia leaned forward, her eyes wide. But if they took everything, how do we find the symphony? Daniel studied us both for a long moment before speaking. Your mother was clever. She would never put everything in one place. She believed in redundancy, in leaving trails. If she wanted you to find her work, she would have left more than just scraps. I pulled the folded paper from my pocket, laying it on the table between us. Then this is the first breadcrumb, where's the next? Daniel rubbed his temples, thinking. She used to keep a safety deposit box. I never saw what was inside, but she mentioned it once. Said it was her backup if anything ever happened to her. My breath caught. Do you know where? He nodded slowly. On 42nd Street. The bank near Bryant Park. But Scarlett? His voice dropped. If the box is still there, and if it holds what I think it might, then you're stepping into dangerous territory. People killed for this, don't underestimate that. A shiver ran down my spine, but I straightened my shoulders. I can't stop now, not when I'm this close. Olivia squeezed my hand under the table, her eyes fierce. We'll go together. Daniel looked between us, his expression a mix of pride and fear. Then promise me you'll be careful, and promise me if you find something, you'll bring it to me before you do anything else. We promised, though deep down I knew promises wouldn't protect us. That night, Olivia and I walked back through Times Square. Neon lights bathed us in color, crowds surged around us, but I felt strangely exposed, like eyes were following me. I tugged my coat tighter and whispered, Do you feel that? Olivia glanced around, uneasy. Yeah, like we're being watched. We quickened our pace until we reached my apartment. Inside, we locked the door and checked the windows twice. It felt paranoid, but Daniel's warnings echoed in my head. We spread our notes across the floor, preparing for the trip to the bank. Olivia tried to distract me with jokes, but I could see the tension in her shoulders. You know, she said, this is starting to feel less like a Broadway show and more like a spy thriller. I laughed softly, though it sounded hollow. If it is, then we're the worst spies in the world. No plan, no disguises, just two girls with a piece of paper and a dream. She smiled faintly. Then let's make it work anyway. That night I dreamed of my mother again, but this time the dream was darker. She sat at the piano, her hands moving urgently, her eyes darting toward the door like she was afraid someone would burst in. She turned to me, her voice trembling. Don't let them silence me, Scarlett. Don't let them win. I woke in a cold sweat, my chest aching. I knew what I had to do. The next morning, Olivia and I met Daniel outside the bank on 42nd Street. The building was tall and gray, its windows reflecting the pale winter sky. My stomach churned as we walked up the steps. Inside, the air smelled of polished wood and paper. Daniel led us to the counter, his voice calm as he spoke to the clerk. We'd like to access a safety deposit box. The clerk asked for identification. Daniel handed over paperwork, and after a few tense moments, we were led down into the vault. The air was cooler there, the walls lined with metal boxes that stretched on forever. The clerk unlocked one and handed it to Daniel, who placed it on the table. My heart pounded so loud I could barely hear. My hands shook as I reached for the lid. Olivia squeezed my shoulder, grounding me. Daniel gave a small nod. I opened the box. Inside, wrapped in yellowing paper, were several bound notebooks and a stack of sheet music tied with ribbon. The sight stole my breath. Olivia gasped. Scarlett, it's hers. I lifted the notebooks carefully, my fingers trembling. The handwriting was hers, my mother, elegant, looping, alive. Tears filled my eyes as I flipped through pages filled with notes, sketches, fragments of melodies, and beneath them the ribbon stack. A full composition. Daniel's voice was hushed. The symphony. I held it to my chest, my heart hammering. My mother's voice, her truth, her fight, it was all here. But as we stood there in the vault, clutching her work, I felt a chill run through me. Because I knew the moment we walked out of that bank, we would not be safe. And Victor would not let this go. The weight of the box in my arms felt heavier than anything I had ever carried. It was not just paper or music, it was my mother's voice, her fight, her unfinished story. Walking out of that bank, I could almost feel her beside me, whispering encouragement in the rhythm of the city's heartbeat. But underneath the thrill of discovery was fear. I knew from the way Daniel kept glancing over his shoulder, from the way Olivia clutched my arm as we walked through the crowded streets, that none of us felt safe. Back in my apartment, we set everything on the floor. The notebooks, the ribbon stack of sheet music, the scraps tucked inside. It felt almost sacred. I hesitated before touching anything, afraid my trembling hands might tear the fragile pages. Olivia knelt beside me, her eyes wide. "Scarlett, this is history." Daniel's voice was steady, but his face was grim. "It's more than history, it's evidence. Your mother wasn't just writing music. She was documenting things people killed to bury." I untied the ribbon and spread the sheet music out across the floor. The pages stretched in a wide circle around us, notes dancing like constellations, my breath caught at the sight. "She finished it," I whispered, "her symphony." Olivia picked up one of the notebooks and flipped through. "Look at this, it's not just music, it's codes." She wrote in symbols, numbers, phrases tucked between staves. Daniel leaned closer, adjusting his glasses. She was encrypting information, hiding it in plain sight. My chest tightened. "Then we have to figure out what it says." For hours, we pored over the pages, my apartment turning into a workshop of obsession. Olivia hummed passages out loud, tapping patterns with her pencil. Daniel translated numbers into letters, tracing connections with the precision of an investigator who had never stopped working the case. I played the notes on my keyboard, again and again, searching for patterns hidden beneath the music. At one point, Olivia gasped, slapping the page with her palm. "Here. This section, it doesn't make sense musically. It's too repetitive, but if you count the beats differently." I leaned over, heart racing. "What does it spell?" She grinned through her exhaustion. "Names, Scarlett, look, names of companies, labels, producers." Daniel's face darkened as he read the list. "These are some of the most powerful names in the industry." She was mapping out their corruption. Contracts, stolen royalties, silenced voices. This is why she was silenced. I pressed my hand to my mouth, my heart pounding. My mother had been trying to expose the truth all along, and she had hidden it in her symphony. But the excitement was short-lived, because with every discovery, the danger became clearer. If these names ever saw daylight, entire empires would crumble. And Victor, if he had known about this, wouldn't let it happen. The next day at rehearsal, I walked in with the weight of the symphony heavy in my bag. Every step across that stage felt different. I wasn't just performing anymore, I was carrying a secret that could topple giants. Victor was waiting near the piano, his smile too sharp, too rehearsed. When his eyes landed on me, something flickered in them. "You're glowing today, Scarlett," he said smoothly. "Did you find new inspiration?" I forced a calm smile. "Maybe I did." He leaned closer, his voice dropping so only I could hear. "Be careful with inspiration. Sometimes it leads you to places you don't want to go." My stomach twisted, but I didn't flinch. Maybe those are the places worth going. He studied me for a long moment, then smiled again and walked away. But the warning lingered, burning through my veins. That evening, back in my apartment, Olivia replayed the conversation in her head a dozen times. "He knows, Scarlett, he knows you're digging." Daniel sat stiffly in the chair by the window, his jaw tight. "We need to move carefully. If Victor suspects you, he'll act, and he won't be subtle." I stared at the pages spread out on the table, my mother's handwriting glowing under the lamplight. "Then we act first." For hours we worked through the symphony, piecing together the coded message. Slowly, a picture emerged, contracts altered, artists destroyed, accidents staged. My mother had been ready to release all of it, woven into a masterpiece that would have both stunned audiences and revealed the truth. But she had been stopped before she could. At one point, Olivia leaned back, tears shining in her eyes. She was a genius. She turned her music into a weapon, and now it's in your hands. My chest ached, torn between pride and grief. She trusted me to finish what she started. Daniel's voice was low, almost reverent. "Then that's exactly what we'll do." But as midnight came and the city outside grew quiet, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were running out of time. When I finally collapsed into bed, sleep took me quickly, and once again, she came to me. My mother, seated at the piano, her eyes burning with urgency. "Scarlett," she said, her voice trembling, "you must play it, you must let the world hear it, only then will they know." I reached for her, but the dream dissolved into darkness. I woke with tears on my face and the echo of her voice in my ears, and I knew what had to come next. I wasn't just going to decode her symphony. I was going to play it. The morning after the dream, I woke with my mother's voice echoing inside me. She had told me to play it, to let the world hear what she had hidden. The thought stayed with me as I made coffee, as I walked down the crowded street toward the theater, as I stood beneath the glowing marquee with my name blazing above me. I was no longer just an actress stepping into her role. I was the keeper of her unfinished battle. Olivia met me before rehearsal. Her face was tired, her eyes rimmed red from sleepless nights, but her energy was fierce. She grabbed my arm and whispered urgently, "Scarlett, we cannot wait much longer. If he knows, if Victor has any idea what we have, then he will strike first. We need to decide what to do." I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "Then we do what my mother asked, we let the world hear it." Her eyes widened. "You mean perform the symphony?" "Yes, not just the fragment, the whole thing. She wanted it to be heard. She wanted the truth to come alive through the music. If we can perform it, they will not be able to bury it." She squeezed my hand hard. "Then we will find a way." Inside rehearsal, I felt Victor's eyes on me like a shadow. Every note I sang, every line I spoke, I could feel his gaze burning into me. During a break he approached, his smile polished, his tone smooth as silk. "You are remarkable, Scarlett, truly remarkable, but you look distracted. Are you sure your mind is where it needs to be?" I forced a smile, though my hands trembled around my water bottle. "I am fine, just tired." He leaned in closer, his voice dropping. "Be careful not to wander too far into things you cannot handle. Curiosity is a dangerous trait in this business." His words sent a chill through me. He knew. He might not know exactly what we had found, but he sensed I was no longer just his lead actress. I was a threat. That night, back at my apartment, I told Daniel everything. He sat quietly as I recounted Victor's words, his expression hardening with every detail. "He is warning you," Daniel said, "which means he is afraid. That is good. Fear makes people sloppy." I shook my head, pacing the room. "Good for him maybe, but for me it is terrifying. He knows I am not just singing anymore. He knows I am carrying something." Daniel rose from his chair and put a steady hand on my shoulder. "Scarlett, you cannot back down. This is exactly what he wants, to scare you into silence. But your mother fought too hard for you to give in now." Olivia spoke up from where she sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by sheet music. "Then let us plan. If we are going to perform the symphony, we need a stage, an audience, and people who will listen." I met her eyes and felt a surge of gratitude. "We already have a stage, Broadway itself." Her jaw dropped. "You mean during the show?" "Yes, imagine it. Opening night, a sold-out theater, the world watching. Instead of ending with his version, we perform hers. The truth will pour out in music, undeniable, unstoppable." Daniel frowned, his brow furrowed. "That would be dangerous. He will do everything to stop you. If you challenge him publicly, you are painting a target on your back." I swallowed hard, my chest heavy with both fear and resolve. "Then let him try. I will not hide anymore. If my mother's life was stolen to keep this music silent, then I will not let them bury her again. She deserves to be heard. The world deserves to know." Silence filled the room, heavy but electric. Then Olivia nodded slowly. "If that is the plan, then I am with you." Daniel exhaled, his eyes filled with both worry and pride. "Then we prepare carefully. If we are to pull this off, we need allies. People in the industry who are tired of the corruption. People who will stand by you when the storm comes." Over the next week, every rehearsal felt like walking a tightrope. On the surface, I was Scarlett Harper, professional, focused, dedicated to the show. Beneath the surface, I was studying, decoding, preparing for a performance that could tear the roof off Broadway itself. Olivia and I stayed up late every night, piecing together the symphony, practicing sections until the neighbors banged on the walls. Daniel worked his contacts quietly, reaching out to people who owed him favors, people who had whispered about the darkness in the industry but never dared to act. The closer we got, the more dangerous everything felt. I started noticing things I had ignored before. A man watching me outside the stage door 2 nights in a row. A black car idling across the street from my apartment. Anonymous notes slipped into my bag with words like "Stop now," and "You do not know what you're doing." One night after rehearsal, Olivia and I hurried out the back exit, laughing too loudly to cover our nerves. As we turned the corner, a man in a dark coat stepped into our path. My stomach clenched, but before he could speak, Daniel appeared out of nowhere, his voice sharp and commanding. "She is with me, walk away." The man hesitated, then melted back into the shadows. My knees nearly gave out as Daniel guided us quickly to his car. In the safety of his apartment later, I exploded. "This is insane. They are watching me. They are threatening me. For what? For the truth? For music?" Daniel's face was grim. "For power. Your mother was going to take it from them, and now they see you as a continuation of her fight. That makes you dangerous. That makes you a target." Olivia grabbed my hand, her eyes fierce. Then let us make it worth it. If they are this scared, it means the truth is powerful. So we give it to the world, loud, raw, undeniable. Her words lit a fire in me. I stood, lifting the stack of sheet music high. Then it is settled. On opening night, I will play her symphony. No matter what he does, no matter how hard they try to stop me, I will make sure her voice is heard. The three of us stared at one another in the dim light of Daniel's living room, a silent agreement passing between us. We were no longer just chasing ghosts. We were preparing for war, and the battlefield would be Broadway. The days leading up to opening night felt like walking across a frozen lake. Every step seemed steady on the surface, but I could feel the cracks beneath me, ready to split open at any second. Rehearsals carried on as usual, the cast buzzing with nerves and excitement, the crew racing to perfect every detail. On the outside, I was Scarlett Harper, the rising star living her Broadway dream. But inside, I was counting down to something entirely different. Every night, after hours, Olivia and I worked through the symphony in secret. We pieced together my mother's final composition until the melodies burned into my bones. My fingers shook as I played them on the piano, my voice trembling at first but growing steadier with each attempt. Olivia sat beside me, scribbling notes, marking transitions, whispering encouragement whenever fear tightened my throat. "You can do this," she said one night as I collapsed against the keys, exhausted. "Scarlett, this isn't just music. This is a revolution, and you were born to carry it." I lifted my head, sweat dampening my hairline. "But what if I fail? What if they stop me before I even open my mouth?" She leaned closer, her eyes fierce. "Then we go down fighting. But I don't think you'll fail. I think you're exactly who your mom believed you'd be." Her faith was the anchor that kept me from drifting into panic. Daniel was working in his own way. He met us after rehearsals, slipping us updates in hushed voices as we huddled in my apartment. "I've contacted a few journalists I trust," he told us one evening. "If we can get them into the audience, if they hear what you play, they'll know the significance. They'll spread it before anyone can shut it down." "Journalists?" I whispered, my chest tight. "That makes it real." "It is real," Daniel said firmly. "The moment you play that symphony, it won't just be art anymore. It'll be evidence. The world will demand answers." The thought thrilled and terrified me in equal measure. Victor, meanwhile, had grown sharper in rehearsal. His compliments felt like veiled warnings, his corrections harsher than before. More than once I caught him staring at me from across the room, his eyes cold, calculating. During a break, he cornered me near the piano, his voice low enough that no one else could hear. "You know, Scarlett, stars rise quickly on Broadway, but they fall even faster. Be careful not to burn too bright too soon." I forced myself to meet his gaze. Maybe that's exactly what I want, to burn bright, to light everything up. His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Just remember who controls the spotlight." When he walked away, my knees nearly gave out. I gripped the edge of the piano, trying to steady my breathing. His words weren't just warnings anymore. They were threats. That night, Olivia and I argued for the first time since this began. "Scarlett, you saw the way he looked at you. He knows. He's going to do something." "I know," I snapped, pacing the apartment. "But I can't stop now." Her voice broke, raw with fear. "You're acting like you're invincible, but you're not. You're flesh and blood. If something happens to you—" I stopped and grabbed her hands, my eyes burning. "Olivia, listen to me. I have been haunted my whole life by silence. By not knowing who she was, by not knowing what really happened. Now I have her music, her voice, her truth. If I walk away now, then she died for nothing. I'd rather risk everything than live with that." She stared at me, tears in her eyes, then finally nodded. "Then I'll risk it with you." We embraced, clinging to each other as if the world outside was already crashing down. 2 nights before opening, Daniel came to us with news. "I've confirmed it. Victor has ties to the companies your mother wrote about. He isn't just a thief. He is part of the very machine she tried to expose." My blood ran cold. "So he's protecting himself?" "Yes," Daniel said. "And if you play that symphony, you're not just exposing the industry, you're exposing him." That realization made everything clearer. Victor wasn't just my rival or an opportunistic composer. He was my mother's enemy, and now he was mine. The night before opening, I barely slept. I sat at the piano in the dark, playing the first notes of the symphony over and over, my hands trembling until they steadied. I could almost feel her sitting beside me, guiding my fingers, her voice whispering in the shadows. "You are ready, Scarlett, you are ready." When dawn broke, I stood by the window and watched the city wake. Taxis honked, lights flickered on in tall buildings, the hum of New York rose with the sun. For the first time, I felt like I belonged to it, not just as an actress chasing fame, but as a daughter carrying forward a legacy. That evening, as I walked into the theater for final rehearsal, the air was charged with something electric. Castmates hugged, crew rushed, the director barked orders, but I moved through it all in a quiet daze. Every step felt like the drumbeat of fate. Olivia caught up with me backstage, her voice urgent. "Tomorrow's the night. Are you sure you're ready?" I turned to her, my heart pounding but steady. I've never been more ready in my life. Behind us, I heard Victor call my name, his tone honey sweet but sharp underneath. I turned to see him standing in the wings, smiling as if he already owned the night. But deep inside, I knew, tomorrow would not belong to him. Tomorrow would belong to my mother. And to me, opening night. The words alone were enough to make my heart pound. I had dreamed of this moment since I was a little girl spinning in my bedroom, pretending I was under stage lights, pretending the applause was mine. And now it was real. The marquee outside blazed my name in bold letters, the theater doors were lined with people in their best clothes, and inside the air buzzed with excitement so thick I could almost taste it. But tonight was no longer just about a Broadway debut. Tonight was war. Olivia stayed with me in the dressing room as I changed into costume. My hands shook so badly I dropped my makeup brush twice. She caught it the second time, holding it out to me with a steady look. "You're not alone," she whispered. I nodded, swallowing hard. "I know, but God, Liv, what if something goes wrong? What if I freeze? What if the orchestra refuses? What if Victor—" "Stop," she said firmly, grabbing my face so I had to look at her. "You are ready, you've been ready, and Victor doesn't own you or this night, you own it." Her words lit something inside me, something steady and fierce. I closed my eyes, breath deep, and let the fear burn into fuel. When the stage manager called 5 minutes, my stomach lurched, but my legs carried me to the wings anyway. The house was packed. I could see flashes of cameras, hear the hum of voices, feel the energy rippling through the velvet seats. Somewhere out there, journalists Daniel had contacted were waiting. Somewhere out there, the truth had a chance to finally be heard. Victor appeared beside me, immaculate in his suit, his smile razor sharp. "Ready to make history, Scarlett?" I forced my voice steady. "More than you know." His eyes narrowed just for a second before he turned away to cue the orchestra. The curtain rose. The first act flew by in a blur. I delivered every line, every song, every movement with precision, but my mind was racing ahead to the end. To the moment I would have to choose. Sweat trickled down my back, my throat burned, but the applause after each number fueled me, pushed me forward. At intermission, Olivia slipped backstage, hugging me tight. "You're killing it out there." "But are you ready for the last act?" I nodded, my chest heaving. "This is it, no turning back." Daniel's voice came through my phone in a quick call he managed to sneak in. "The journalists are here. They're watching. Whatever happens, it won't disappear into silence this time." I closed my eyes, whispering, "Thank you." The second act began. Every note, every step carried me closer to the edge. I could see Victor watching from the wings, his eyes never leaving me. He knew something was coming. And then it was time. The final scene. The moment where the show was supposed to end with Victor's stolen melody. I walked to center stage, the spotlight blinding, the orchestra waiting. My hands trembled, but I lifted my chin. The audience hushed. Instead of singing his ending, I gave the conductor the smallest nod. He froze, confused, but then Olivia, stationed with the music we had prepared, slipped the pages into his hands. Daniel had spoken to him quietly earlier, convincing him this was more than theater, this was truth. The conductor looked at me, then at the pages, then back at me. Slowly, he lifted his baton. The first notes of my mother's symphony rose into the air. The audience stirred, whispering. Victor shot up from his chair in the wings, his face pale with rage. "Stop this," he hissed, but the orchestra kept playing. I opened my mouth and let the music pour out of me. It was like my mother's spirit filled my lungs, guided my voice. The melody soared, not just beautiful but urgent, raw, alive. Every chord carried weight, every phrase carried secrets. The names, the corruption, the betrayal, it was all there, coded into the music, spilling out into the theater. The audience was transfixed. Some leaned forward, some pressed hands to their mouths, others simply stared wide-eyed as if they knew something monumental was happening but couldn't yet name it. Victor stormed toward the stage, his voice cutting through the music. "This is not the show. Cut the lights, cut the sound." But no one moved. The orchestra played louder. Olivia had whispered to the crew earlier, and they had seen the fear in her eyes, the conviction in her voice. For once, they chose not to obey Victor. I sang with everything I had, tears streaming down my face, my voice trembling but unbroken. My mother's notes became mine, her fight became mine. The walls shook with the power of it, the truth echoing through every corner of the theater. When the final note rang out, silence fell. A silence so thick it felt sacred. Then the audience erupted. Not just polite applause, but a roar, a standing ovation, shouts, whistles, thunder that shook the floor. I stood in the center of it, my chest heaving, my heart pounding like it would burst. Olivia rushed from the wings, wrapping me in her arms. Daniel appeared at the edge of the stage, his eyes shining with pride and something like relief. Victor, red-faced and furious, tried to shout over the noise. "This is fraud, this is theft," but the audience ignored him. The journalists were already scribbling, recording, and snapping photos. His words were drowned in the storm of applause. For the first time, I felt free, and I knew this was only the beginning. The morning after opening night, New York felt different. I walked out of my apartment, and the city air buzzed with a new energy, like the streets themselves had heard what happened on that stage. The newspapers at the corner stand shouted headlines I never thought I'd see. Broadway star shocks audience with secret symphony, Scarlett Harper breaks the mold. Whose music was it really? Flashes of my performance filled every news channel. Clips of the symphony spread online like wildfire, shaky recordings from audience members racking up millions of views overnight. People weren't just talking about Broadway anymore. They were talking about corruption, stolen music, and the mysterious history of my mother. Olivia came running up the stairs to my apartment, clutching a newspaper. Her face was flushed with excitement. "Scarlett, look, you're everywhere. They can't stop talking about you." I took the paper from her, my hands trembling as I read my own name splashed across the front page. My face stared back at me in black and white, mouth open mid-song, tears shining on my cheeks. For a moment I couldn't breathe. "This is real," I whispered. "It's out there. People heard it." Olivia grinned. "And they loved it. The whole world knows now." But her smile faltered as she flipped to another page. "There's more. Victor's already striking back." The article was filled with his statements, bold and furious. He accused me of sabotaging the show, of performing unauthorized material, of betraying the cast and crew. He called me unstable, unprofessional, a fraud. My chest tightened as I read his words. He's painting me as a liar. Olivia slammed the paper shut. "Let him try. People saw the truth last night. They felt it. He can't spin that away." But I wasn't so sure. Later that day, Daniel arrived at my apartment with a folder of clippings and notes. His expression was tense. The good news is the story has spread too far for them to bury it. The bad news is Victor and his allies are powerful. They've already begun a smear campaign against you. They'll try to ruin your reputation before the truth can settle. I sank onto the couch, burying my face in my hands. I just wanted to honor her. Now it feels like I've stepped into a battlefield I don't even know how to fight. Daniel sat beside me, his voice calm but firm. "You are fighting, and you're not alone. The fact that they're panicking means you struck a nerve. You have leverage now, but you need to be ready for the next move." As if on cue, my phone buzzed. An unknown number flashed across the screen. Against my better judgment, I answered. Victor's voice oozed through the line, cold and controlled. "You made quite a scene last night, Scarlett." "Impressive, really, but I hope you understand what you've done. You've embarrassed powerful people, people who don't forgive easily." My grip tightened on the phone. "I sang the truth, that's all I did." He chuckled darkly. "The truth is a dangerous thing in this business, and you, my dear, are not equipped to handle the consequences." I forced steel into my voice. "Maybe you underestimated me." There was a pause, then his voice dropped lower. "Enjoy your moment in the spotlight. It won't last." The line went dead. My hands shook as I lowered the phone. Olivia's eyes were wide with anger. "That bastard, he's threatening you." Daniel's jaw clenched. "It's not just a threat, it's a warning. We need to tighten our guard. From now on, you're not walking alone, not even to rehearsal." And he was right. The days that followed blurred into a whirlwind of chaos. Some fans hailed me as a hero, others called me reckless. Theaters buzzed with gossip, social media exploded with debates, and reporters camped outside my apartment building, shouting questions every time I left. "Was the symphony really your mother? Did Victor steal it? Are you planning to sue?" I kept my head down, Olivia shielding me as best she could, Daniel clearing paths through the crowds. But inside, my heart raced constantly, the fear and adrenaline never leaving. At rehearsal, the tension was unbearable. Half the cast treated me like a legend, whispering their support, sneaking smiles when Victor wasn't looking. The other half avoided me entirely, too afraid to be seen taking sides. Victor himself barely spoke to me, but his presence loomed, heavy and threatening. One afternoon, during a break, he approached me in the wings. His smile was sharp enough to cut glass. "You think you've won something, don't you? But all you've done is step into a storm you can't control." I met his gaze, my voice steady despite the shaking in my hands. Maybe, but storms don't scare me anymore. For a moment, his mask slipped, and I saw the fury burning beneath his calm exterior. Then he turned on his heel and walked away. That night, Daniel gathered us in his apartment. He spread documents across the table: contracts, financial records, notes from my mother's journals. "This is the real battle," he said. "The music was only the beginning. Now we need to show the world exactly what your mother discovered. We need to prove it." Olivia leaned forward, her eyes blazing. "Then let's do it. Let's finish what she started." I stared at the papers, my chest heavy with both fear and determination. If Victor wants to silence me, he'll have to try harder. I'm not backing down. For the first time since opening night, I felt steady again. My mother had trusted me with her voice. Now it was time to use it, no matter how loud the storm became. The week after opening night felt like living inside a storm. Reporters followed me everywhere, shouting questions every time I stepped outside. Social media couldn't get enough of the Broadway betrayal, as they called it. Some people praised me for being brave. Others accused me of ruining an entire production. And Victor, of course, poured gasoline on the fire. Every morning, new headlines painted me as reckless, unstable, even dangerous. He gave interviews on every network, his voice smooth as ever. "I have always supported Scarlett as an artist," he said with a smile that made my stomach turn. "But what she did was unprofessional. She sabotaged months of work for personal drama. She let her emotions overwhelm her craft." Watching him twist the story made me sick. I wanted to scream at the television, to tell the world he was lying. But Daniel kept reminding me, patience. The truth is stronger than spin. We just need to show them proof. So we worked. Every night my apartment turned into a war room. Olivia organized my mother's notebooks, sticking colored tabs on important sections. Daniel traced connections between the coded names in the symphony and real financial records. I tried to keep my head above water, balancing rehearsals with this secret fight, my body running on caffeine and fear. One night, as rain pounded against the windows, Olivia slammed a notebook shut and looked at us, her eyes blazing. "We have enough. Look at this: contracts altered, payments hidden, accidents that weren't accidents. Your mother documented everything. If we put this out there, they won't be able to deny it." Daniel leaned back, rubbing his temples. "We can't just dump it online. If we do, they'll call it fake, they'll bury it. We need to deliver it strategically, to someone powerful enough to protect it." I swallowed hard. "Like who?" He looked at me seriously. "Investigative journalists, the kind who don't back down. I know a few who owe me favors. If we can get them on board, the story will break wide open." The plan sounded solid, but fear gnawed at me. What if Victor finds out? What if he stops us before we can share it? Daniel's gaze was steady. Then we don't give him the chance. But Victor was already moving faster than we thought. 2 days later, I arrived at rehearsal to find whispers spreading through the cast. People glanced at me nervously, avoiding my eyes. Olivia pulled me aside, her face pale. "Scarlett, did you hear? He's filed a lawsuit. He's claiming you stole his work, that you defamed him. He's demanding damages." The floor seemed to tilt beneath me. "What? He stole my mother's music. How can he accuse me?" "Because he's powerful," Olivia said bitterly. "And he knows how to play this game." That afternoon, Victor confronted me in the hallway, flanked by 2 lawyers. His smile was smug. "You thought you could humiliate me and walk away unscathed? Actions have consequences, my dear. You'll learn that soon enough." I wanted to scream at him, to shove the proof in his face right then and there, but Daniel's voice echoed in my head, "Patience." So instead, I met his gaze and said, "So do lies." For a split second, his smile faltered. Then he turned and walked away. That night, Daniel arranged a secret meeting with one of his contacts, a journalist named Marissa Chen. We met in the back of a quiet diner, the kind where no one paid attention to anyone else. She was sharp-eyed, quick, and didn't waste time with pleasantries. "Show me what you've got," she said, sliding into the booth. Olivia laid out the notebooks, the sheet music, the annotations. Marissa flipped through them, her expression unreadable. After a long silence, she looked up at me. "This is huge. If this is real, it will shake the industry to its core. But I need verification. I need hard evidence beyond the music and journals. Can you give me that?" My chest tightened. "We're working on it, but everything you need is here. My mother wrote it all down. She risked her life for this." Marissa studied me for a moment, then nodded slowly. "All right, I'll start digging. But be careful. If what you're saying is true, then the people behind this won't stop at threats. They'll come for you." Her warning echoed in my ears long after we left the diner. Later that night, Olivia and I sat on my couch in silence, the city lights flickering through the window. Finally, she whispered, "Do you think we can actually do this? Take down Victor, expose everything?" I looked at her, my heart pounding. "We have to, for my mom, for everyone they silenced. If we don't, then all of this was for nothing." She reached for my hand and squeezed it tight. "Then I'm with you, no matter how bad it gets." I smiled through the fear, holding onto her hand like a lifeline. "Then let's finish this." But as I closed my eyes that night, I couldn't shake the feeling that the real fight hadn't even begun, because Victor wasn't the kind of man to lose quietly, and the storm was only getting darker. The next few days felt like living under a microscope. Everywhere I went, I felt eyes on me. Walking to the theater, I noticed the same black car parked across the street more than once. When Olivia and I left rehearsals, we would hear footsteps behind us that stopped whenever we turned around. Daniel insisted on escorting us most nights, his presence a shield, but even he admitted it was getting worse. "This isn't paranoia anymore," he told me one night as we sat in his car outside my apartment. "They're watching you, waiting for a chance to strike. We need to be ready." I clenched my fists in my lap, my chest tight. I'm so tired of being afraid. First my mom, now me. "I won't let them silence us both." His voice softened. "Courage doesn't mean you're not afraid, Scarlett. It means you keep going anyway, and that's exactly what you're doing." Inside my apartment, Olivia was pacing, clutching her phone. "Marissa just texted me," she said as soon as I walked in. "She found something big. She wants to meet tomorrow." "What did she find?" I asked, my stomach twisting. "She didn't say, just that it's huge." I exhaled slowly. Maybe this was it. Maybe we were close to breaking everything open. The next evening we met Marissa in a dim coffee shop downtown. She slid a folder across the table, her eyes sharp. "I've traced payments from one of the companies your mother wrote about. Shell accounts, offshore transfers, millions moving in circles. And guess whose name pops up as a consultant?" I leaned forward, my heart pounding. "Victor." She nodded grimly. "He wasn't just stealing music, he was profiting off the entire scheme. Your mother's symphony named the players, and he was one of them. If we publish this, it'll destroy him." A flicker of hope sparked in me, but it was quickly drowned by fear. "Then he won't let it happen. He'll come after us harder." Marissa's gaze didn't waver. "Then you better be ready, because I'm going to print it, with or without your permission." Olivia grabbed my hand under the table. I could feel her pulse racing as fast as mine. That night, as we walked back to my apartment, a figure stepped out of the shadows. Before I could react, he grabbed my arm hard enough to make me cry out. "Leave it alone," he hissed. His face was hidden beneath a cap, but his grip was iron. "You don't know what you're messing with." Olivia shoved at him, yelling, "Let her go." Daniel appeared out of nowhere, pulling the man off me, his voice low and furious. "Back off." The man staggered back, his eyes narrowing. "This is your last warning." Then he vanished into the night. I was shaking so hard my knees almost gave out. Daniel wrapped his arm around me, guiding me inside. Olivia locked the door behind us, her face pale with fear. "Scarlett, this isn't just intimidation anymore," she whispered. "They're willing to hurt you." I pressed my trembling hands to my face. "Then let them try. I'm not stopping." But inside, my chest ached with terror. I had never felt closer to my mother than in that moment, because I finally understood the fear she must have carried before her accident. The next day, rehearsals felt surreal. I sang, I danced, I smiled for the cast, but every second I expected someone to grab me, to drag me off stage, to silence me. Victor hovered near the piano, watching me with that smug, poisonous smile. When rehearsal ended, he called my name. I froze, my heart pounding, but forced myself to turn. "What do you want?" He stepped closer, his voice smooth but edged with steel. "You're playing a dangerous game, Scarlett. You think the audience will remember your little stunt, but they won't. People like you burn out fast, and when you do, no one will care what you had to say." I forced myself to meet his gaze, even though my whole body trembled. They'll remember, because the truth always outlives the lies. For a moment, his mask slipped, and the fury underneath flashed in his eyes. Then he leaned in so close I could feel his breath. "You'll regret crossing me." I turned and walked away before he could see how badly I was shaking. That night, I couldn't sleep. Olivia sat beside me on the couch, flipping through my mother's journals, trying to distract herself. Daniel paced by the window, his eyes scanning the street below. The city felt less like home and more like a battlefield. "Scarlett," Olivia said softly, "maybe we should leave New York for a while, just until this blows over." I shook my head, tears stinging my eyes. "If I run now, I'm doing exactly what they want. My mom didn't run, and I can't either." Daniel turned from the window, his voice firm. "Then we prepare for the worst, because after Marissa publishes, Victor won't hold back anymore. He'll come at you with everything he has." I looked at them both, my chest heavy but my voice steady. Then let him. I'd rather go down fighting than live in silence." The room fell silent. Outside, the city hummed as if it didn't know a storm was about to break. And deep down, I knew the next move would change everything. The morning the article dropped, New York woke up to a different world. Marissa's story exploded across every front page, every channel, every feed. Broadway's darkest secret: corruption, theft, and the lost symphony. My mother's name was everywhere. Her journals, her coded music, the financial records Daniel had uncovered, they were all laid out in black and white. And Victor's name was right there with them, tied to every dirty deal, every stolen note, every silenced artist. I sat at my kitchen table, clutching a mug of coffee I couldn't drink, watching the news anchors repeat her name, my mother's name, with reverence instead of silence. Tears blurred my vision. For the first time, she wasn't just a ghost. She was being seen, heard, remembered. Olivia burst in, holding her phone, her face alight. "Scarlett, it's everywhere. They can't bury it now. People are furious." Fans, musicians, even other composers, they're demanding answers. Daniel arrived minutes later, newspapers under his arm, his expression a mix of triumph and tension. "This is it. The truth is out. But don't think Victor's finished. He'll try to fight back harder than ever." He was right. Within hours, Victor was on television, his voice dripping with charm as he dismissed the article as a tragic attempt by a grieving daughter to rewrite history. He claimed my mother's work was incomplete, that he had merely honored her legacy, that I was unstable and being manipulated. I wanted to throw something at the screen. Instead, I whispered, "He's scared." Daniel nodded. "Terrified, that's why he's lashing out." But fear makes dangerous men reckless. That night, as Olivia and I walked home from rehearsal, a car screeched around the corner and stopped short in front of us. My stomach dropped. A man jumped out, his face shadowed, and lunged toward me. Before I could scream, Daniel appeared from nowhere, tackling him to the ground. Olivia pulled me back against the wall, her nails digging into my arm. The man scrambled free, spitting out a threat. "Stop or you'll end up like her." Then he ran into the night, leaving my blood frozen in my veins. Daniel's breathing was ragged as he stood, brushing himself off. That was no random attack. Victor's getting desperate. Back in my apartment, I collapsed onto the couch, shaking so hard I could barely speak. Olivia knelt in front of me, gripping my hands. "Scarlett, you can't keep putting yourself in danger like this. Please, let someone else carry it now." I shook my head fiercely. "No, this was her fight. It's mine now too, and I know what I have to do." "What?" she whispered. I lifted my eyes to hers, steady despite the tears streaking my cheeks. "I'm going to play the full symphony. Not hidden, not in fragments, not as a stunt. The whole thing, on Broadway, with the world watching." Olivia's breath caught. "Scarlett, that's suicide. Victor will?" "I don't care," I cut in. "If I die tomorrow, at least I'll die telling her story. At least I'll die letting the world hear her voice." Silence filled the room, heavy but unbreakable. Then Daniel spoke, his voice firm. "Then we'll make sure you live through it. We'll get the orchestra on our side, the crew, the cast, and we'll make damn sure the press is there." Olivia wiped her eyes, nodding. "Then let's do it." The day of the performance arrived like the eye of a hurricane, too calm, too still, but heavy with the promise of chaos. My name blazed on the marquee, crowds lined up outside, reporters swarmed the steps. Inside, the theater pulsed with tension. Castmates whispered encouragement, some terrified but supportive, others pretending nothing unusual was about to happen. Victor paced backstage like a general preparing for battle. His smile was tight, his eyes deadly. "Remember, Scarlett," he murmured as he passed me, "this stage belongs to me." I met his gaze without flinching. "Not tonight." When the lights dimmed and the curtain rose, my heart pounded so hard I thought it might burst. Act after act passed in a blur, but I barely heard the applause, barely felt the lights. I was waiting for the moment when I would step out of his show and into my mother's truth. Finally, it came. The final act. The scene where Victor's stolen melody was supposed to end the show. I walked to center stage, the spotlight blinding, the orchestra waiting. For a heartbeat, the world held still. Then I gave the conductor a nod, and the first notes of my mother's symphony filled the air. Gasps rippled through the audience. Victor leapt to his feet, shouting from the wings, "Stop this! Stop the music!" But the orchestra kept playing, their faces set with quiet defiance. The conductor's baton moved like fire, igniting every note. I opened my mouth and poured everything out, my grief, my rage, my love, my mother's unfinished fight. The music roared through me, soaring higher, sharper, truer than I had ever sung. It was not just a song. It was a confession, a declaration, a battle cry. Victor stormed on stage, grabbing my arm. The audience gasped, flashes exploding from cameras. He snarled in my ear, "You'll regret this." I ripped free, my voice unbroken, the symphony thundering louder. "This is hers, not yours, and the world will know it." The audience erupted, boos and shouts drowning him out. Security moved in, pulling him back as the music swelled. He fought, shouting curses, but it was too late. The truth had already taken flight. The final note hung in the air like a prayer. For a moment, silence. Then the theater exploded into thunderous applause, cheers, sobs. People were on their feet, clapping until their hands must have ached. Cameras flashed, recording everything. I stood in the center of it, tears streaming down my face, my chest heaving. Olivia rushed onto the stage, throwing her arms around me. Daniel stood in the wings, his eyes glistening with pride. And in that roar of applause, I felt her, my mother, not as a ghost haunting me, but as a presence standing beside me, proud and free. The headlines the next day sealed it. Victor exposed in symphony scandal. Scarlett Harper carries mother's legacy. A new voice for justice on Broadway. He was finished. The industry that had protected him for so long was forced to turn on him, scrambling to distance themselves as the evidence mounted. For me, the world had changed. I was no longer just an actress chasing a dream. I was a daughter who had turned silence into song, who had carried her mother's truth into the light. Standing on the stage days later, staring out at the empty seats, I whispered to the shadows, "We did it, Mom. They can't silence you anymore." And for the first time, the silence that answered me didn't feel empty. It felt like peace. When I close my eyes and think about everything that has happened, it feels like two different lives stitched together by one melody. There was the life I lived before, when I was just another girl chasing a dream on Broadway, focused on hitting the right notes, desperate for applause, measuring my worth by how loudly people clapped. And then there is the life I live now, a life shaped not by the spotlight but by the shadows, a life born out of a melody that would not let me go. For years, I thought I was alone. I thought the silence left behind after my mother was gone meant there was nothing left of her. I tried to bury that ache, to fill it with rehearsals, with performances, with all the glitter and noise Broadway could give me. But the truth is silence is never empty. Silence holds everything that has been taken, everything that has been hidden, everything that waits for someone brave enough to bring it back into the light. My mother's voice lived inside that silence. Her love, her fight, her unfinished song. And I was the one meant to hear it. I cannot tell you how strange it is to hum a melody you have known your whole life without knowing why, and then one day hear it played by an orchestra and realize it belongs to someone you lost. It is like discovering a missing part of yourself, a piece of your soul that has been waiting patiently in the dark. That moment changed me forever. The melody led me to her journals, to her unfinished symphony, to the secrets she tried to protect. It led me to truths about corruption, betrayal, and greed, truths that powerful men wanted buried. It led me to nights of fear, to shadows that followed me home, to threats whispered in the dark. But it also led me to courage I did not know I had, to allies who refused to let me fight alone, to a stage where I could finally give her voice back to the world. I used to believe music was just entertainment. Something beautiful, yes, something moving, but still just notes strung together. Now I know music is more than that. Music is memory. Music is testimony. Music is a weapon. It can carry truth across years, across silence, across death itself. My mother proved that. Her symphony was more than art. It was evidence, confession, prophecy. And when I sang it, I felt all of it pouring through me like fire. Victor tried to steal it. He thought if he buried her melody inside his show, he could claim it as his own. He thought power was enough to rewrite history. But you cannot steal the heartbeat of someone who refuses to be forgotten. You cannot silence a voice that keeps echoing inside her daughter. You cannot bury the truth forever. I have been called brave for what I did, but bravery is not what carried me. Love did. Love for a woman I barely remembered, love for a voice that had been taken too soon, love for the truth she refused to let die. That love burned hotter than fear. That love gave me the strength to stand in front of the world and sing what others tried to erase. And when the final note rang out on that stage, when the theater shook with applause, I realized something. The story was not just mine or hers. It belonged to everyone who had ever been silenced, everyone who had ever been told their voice did not matter. Because it does matter. Every voice matters. Maybe that is the message I want to leave with you. That no matter how small you feel, no matter how loud the world's lies seem, your truth has weight. Your voice has power. You might think no one is listening, but someone is. Someone is waiting. Someone is desperate for the melody only you can sing. I waited my whole life to hear my mother, and when I finally did, I found myself. Now when I step onto the stage, I do not just sing for me, I sing for her. I sing for Olivia, who stood beside me when the world felt like it was caving in. I sing for Daniel, who carried his own scars but never stopped fighting for the truth. I sing for every artist whose work was stolen, every dreamer who was told no, every person who was told to sit down and stay quiet. I sing because silence will never win again. Broadway used to be just lights and glamour to me. Now it is something else. It is a place where history can be rewritten, where ghosts can finally speak, where a daughter can give her mother back to the world. It is no longer just a stage, it is a battleground, and every performance is a victory. I do not know what tomorrow will look like. I do not know if the industry will change as much as it should. I do not know if the people who were exposed will truly face the justice they deserve. But I know this, the truth is out now. It cannot be buried again, and I will keep singing it, night after night, until it echoes beyond these walls. I am not the same girl who walked into rehearsal months ago. I am not just Scarlett Harper, the actress chasing her first big role. I am Scarlett Harper, the daughter of a woman who refused to be silenced, the woman who carried her unfinished song into the light. And this is not the end of the story. This is only the beginning. Because somewhere out there, someone else is humming a melody they do not recognize. Somewhere out there, another voice is waiting to be heard. And when they step onto their own stage, when they find their own truth, the world will change again. So if you are listening now, remember this. Do not be afraid of your voice. Do not be afraid of the silence that surrounds you. Inside that silence, there is power. Inside that silence, there is memory. Inside that silence, there is a song only you can sing. Sing it, speak it, shout it. Let it rise until the walls tremble, until the lies shatter, until the truth stands naked in the light. Do it for yourself. Do it for those who came before you. Do it for those who will come after. Because when you do, you are never alone, and neither was I.